This is one of the 4 books I've written, Praying for the Nation. We need a lot of prayer and a lot of help in our nation, don't we, because of the economic corruption and other corruption in our nation. What I'm going to do in this video is read out Malcolm Turnbull's pecuniary interest and his economic wealth in light of he's saying he's establishing an independent body to oversee politicians' expenses. Well, we know he's going to stack that body with his own political people and party people, so that's useless. And we know this has been going on for many years, not only their incomes and expenses, but their perks and entitlements as well, that they've been rorting from the public, which is really stealing from the public. They all do it. They're all guilty. That's federal and state politicians. And, they're trying to force Susan Lee to resign. Well, she's just a scapegoat because they're all the same. They're all guilty. So in addition to the rorting that all Australian politicians engage with their incomes, perks and entitlements and their expenses, it's their pecuniary interests which are just as bad. They punish John Day over his pecuniary interest, a building. But if you look at Malcolm Turnbull's pecuniary interest, it is the worst, most economically corrupt pecuniary interest ever in the history of this nation. I'm going to talk about the articles first. These documents I will upload to Facebook. I'll take copies of and upload to Facebook as evidence for the public. First of all, I'll refer to these articles originally appeared in the Australian newspaper 28th July 2013. The Australian is now trying to take this article off their website, and it refers to there's other articles published on other sites, news.com.au, which is News Corp Australia Network. Patrick Lyon is the journalist. The same article, 28th of July 2013, that's that one. Also appeared in the Advertiser in South Australia, 28th of July 2013, associated also with News Corp Australia Network. Same journalist. And as I said, the Australian, it was published the same date. They're trying to remove it. And also, member of the public, Ozpolitik recently reproduced the publication on the 30th of August 2016. So well done. Also referred to an article produced by the Sydney Morning Herald on the 17th of October 2015 by journalist Anne Davies. And she outlines, I just printed it off on a Word document, but she outlined in the article Malcolm Turnbull's economic wealth, his portfolio, which I'm going to read out in this video. First of all, the articles. I'll read extracts of the article to show the public. The title of the articles are Malcolm Turnbull invested in company awarded almost $2 billion in federal government contracts. And this is what the article says. That's the News Corp article, the other News Corp article. Mr. Turnbull owns bonds in Defence Department contractor Preco Proprietary Limited, a consortium chosen by the Howard government 7 years ago. Bearing in mind this was published in July 2013. 7 years ago, to build and maintain the Australian Military Central Command headquarters for 30 years. Tender notices showed Preco is contracted to the project for $1.54 billion, but has also received another 30-odd contracts totalling almost $10 million to June last year for additional work on the command centre. Mr. Turnbull said the bonds were declared at the time of purchase in March last year. The Commonwealth's policy decisions relating to the project had already been made years earlier, and the command centre contract was locked in and long-term. However, he noted that the bonds could be disposed of easily if necessary. I cannot see what decisions a government could make that would affect the value of the bonds or what conflict, therefore, could arise. Mr. Turnbull's such an economic psychopath that he knew that the federal government had received nearly all this federal funding, $1.54 billion, and an additional $30 million in 30 more contracts, but it's probably more than that because we can't even trust that this information, even though it's produced by their own corporate media people, it is probably more than that. So he knew that they'd received federal funding, Preco, and he, after the fact, purchased bonds in the company. In mid-2006, Preco was chosen to build the $300 million headquarters under a public-private partnership deal. Mr Turnbull was not a member of cabinet at the time, as he was a parliamentary secretary to then Prime Minister John Howard. In March last year, Mr Turnbull declared on his pecuniary interest register Preco Proprietary Limited bonds, in brackets MB Turnbull Proprietary Limited, but has declined to nominate their value. So no, we know he's got bonds. We don't know how many, and here's the value. Ready for this? FIIG Securities, which reportedly trades Preco bonds to retail and commercial investors for at least $50,000 per bond, has previously said a bond from the vehicle offers a yield to maturity of more than 7%. So we know he's got bonds. We don't know how many. We know they're worth $50,000 each, and we know that he purchased them after the federal parliament had provided over $1.54 billion in federal funding to this company. Mr Turnbull, whose wealth has been estimated at almost $200 million, said he knew what Preco was at the time of the purchase, but did not see any issue with his parliamentary business. It's all done and dealt with, he said. It was originally published as Turnbull Defends Bond Purchase. And the analysis by the Sydney Morning Herald, Anne Davies, of Mr Turnbull's economic wealth. I'll just read that out for the public. Where the Turnbulls invest. Property. Brace yourselves for this, people. Point Piper home, $50 million. It's estimated. Manhattan apartment, $3.28 million. Paddington Terrace, $2.8 million. Canberra apartment, $2 million. Potts Point commercial property, $2.5 million plus. Pastoral properties in the Hunter Valley held by family company Wilcrow. That's South Australia. Doesn't state an economic amount. Direct shareholdings. Primer Biomed, which is owned by the spouse, 17 million shares worth approximately $1 million. Mrs Turnbull was on the board and fourth largest shareholder. Exchange traded funds. SPDR S&P 500 invests in US shares. HYG invests in US 10-year bonds. Deposits on banks. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Commonwealth Bank, Macquarie Bank, St George Bank, Westpac Bank, National Australia Bank, and Citibank. Locally managed funds. Pengara Emerging Companies Fund invests in small cap industrials. Bronte Capital Amalthea Fund, Australian dollar investments and overseas stocks. Managed funds offshore. CVC Opportunity Fund, Fixed Income and Hedging Cayman Islands. Zebedee Growth Fund, Hedge Fund Cayman Islands. Bowery Opportunity Fund, Distressed Debt Cayman Islands. MSD Torchlight Fund, Michael Dell Controlled Fund Cayman Islands. Seven Locks Enhanced Fund, Double Leveraged Equity Fund, Delaware, USA. Elbrook Offshore Fund, run by the Stein Brothers, Investments in Financial Stocks, Cayman Islands. Brookfield Wells Street Offshore Fund, Global Real Estate Equities, Cayman Islands. Morgan Stanley Real Estate Fund, four owns a global commercial property portfolio. First Eagle Global Fund, Capital Growth Investments in the USA, Cayman Islands. 3G Natural Resources, based in Brazil, domiciled in the Cayman Islands. Also, the article, extract from the article, this was in response to his investments, particularly in the Cayman Islands. But as you can see, he's got, economic wealth in Australia as well. In regards to two investments in offshore managed funds domiciled in the Cayman Islands, Mr Turnbull responded that he paid his fair share of tax on all the earnings from his investments. He also pointed out that several Australian superannuation funds, including Australian Super, where opposition leader Bill Shorten served on the board, is also invested in Cayman's-based managed funds. PwC tax partner Peter Collins said many funds are established in zero tax jurisdictions such as the Cayman Islands so that investors don't have to pay tax twice on the same income. The problem is not just the tax. The problem is the economic wealth that he has and other politicians, and the rorting, the expenses of the Australian public with their expenses, also their incomes, their perks and entitlements as well, in addition to their, which is also a pecuniary interest because they're making economic gain out of the Commonwealth and their position. tell me these people aren't criminals of the worst kind when they are torturing and killing Australians in government facilities, making 500,000 Australians homeless over the past 50 years, driving Australians to suicide, stealing people's children, and all these horrific crimes going on, political government crimes against the public, government violence against the public, violence against women, etc. You know, voters need to join our political groups. We are the party who's fighting the economic corruption. We are the party who's got economic vision. We are the party who's got vision for the education system. We are the party who's fighting the government's violence against the public. We are the party who's helping the homeless people and parents and all sorts of people and working people and have got a vision to create jobs. So please join us and help us. Thank you.